Okay, we will get started. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Jenna Witherbee. I'm one of the advisors on the team at 401k Plan Professionals, and today's training is a part of our fiduciary training series. And typically in the past, I had covered everything every quarter. And that was a fine way to do it. But this year we decided let's break it apart into three different parts, and then I can go into a little more deeper detail, and it wouldn't be so much information all at once. So today is part three of three, and all of that to say, we do have recordings of part one and part two. I also have a recording of the full blown, everything at once. So a lot of different ways to deliver this information. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate you being here and wanting to learn more about your role as a fiduciary. It's maybe not the most exciting topic in the world, but it is a very important one. So thank you for taking this seriously. Again, my name is Jenna Witherbee. I'm one of the advisors on our team. If you are not familiar with 401k Plan Professionals and what we do, we are retirement plan advisors. So we specialize in the 401k, 403b retirement plan space. And our clients are awesome. They range from small to mid-sized companies, a couple publicly traded companies, and we help the plan administrators and their employees with their retirement plan and their retirement plan outcomes. So this is, again, a part of our training series. We also have a webinar series that I'll mention towards the end of this, where we talk about a broad range of topics, not even just 401k, but all sorts of financial related topics. So today we'll spend 20 minutes on the training. I will leave some time for the end. And if you need to hop off early or want to come back and listen to this again, it's nice because you'll automatically be sent the recording from this training after it's over. And then all of our previous trainings and webinars can be found on our website, 401kplanprofessionals.com. And we also have a YouTube channel, 401k Plan Professionals. Also, after the training, you will receive a fiduciary guide, a checklist, and then there's an optional credential that I'll tell you a little more about at the end. So these are great to have in your fiduciary file. And in general, this is nice to show that you've attended this training from a fiduciary file standpoint. So join as many as you want in the future. So they're there to help you. So here's a look at the seven kind of subtopics for our fiduciary training series. And today we're going to talk about 5, 6, and 7. So helping participants, plan administrator basics, and then going into fiduciary liability, audit, insurance, and bonding. So if you have questions while I'm talking throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will also pause at the end if there's any questions. There's a couple polls as well, so please participate in that. So first, we're going to talk about helping participants. And truly, this is an area that is really near and dear to my heart and everyone on my team. We're very hands-on. And not only do we work really closely with the plan administrators, so HR, CFO, could be CEO, president, accountants, but we also work very closely with the end users. So the participants that are in the plans, helping them with enrollments and investment recommendations and advice. And I just talked to somebody this morning about rolling money into the plan, or we get calls from people that no longer work there or are retired. And, we really feel like this is an area that's important. People need help, and we can really make a difference. But the Department of Labor does have some regulations specifying when and how your plans to help participants under the plan. So there are some requirements every single year with notices and communications. So just to call some of them out, there are fee disclosures, so an annual requirement there, summary plan description. If you're making a change to your plan design, you will have a summary of material modification. Annual report. Blackout notice pertains to if you're changing providers, you need to notify participants when that transition period or blackout period will be. A notice if you make investment changes. And then there's a number of other kind of plan design related notices that may pertain to your plan, like safe harbor, qualified default investment alternative, and automatic enrollment notices. So with choosing plan design, you really want to think about fitting the specific needs of your organization, fitting the specific needs of your culture, your employees. And here's just some examples. So your company may decide to offer a match or a profit sharing contribution or not. Your company can have specific eligibility criteria that fit your workforce. Some things to think about here would be, do we want a certain age requirement? Do we want a length of service requirement to get into the plan? How often do we want to allow people to get into the plan? Monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, maybe right away. And you can also choose whether or not to provide participant education or investment advice. That kind of a service, since we do act as a fiduciary on the plans that we work with, that kind of a service is something that we always offer. Not all advisors can be fiduciaries or have co-fiduciary status. So that's important as well with deciding, is this an area that's important to us? I would say more often than not, our clients are choosing us because this is an area that we do specialize in and focus a lot of time and attention on. But the nice thing about 401k plans from a design standpoint is you do have a lot of different levers. You have a lot of different ways that you can make the plan fit your company and fit your staff. And then how do we measure the success of 401k plans? So here's just some examples. So we look at things like participation rates. How many people are actually utilizing the plan? What percentage of your overall workforce? What's the average contribution rate? And then through the tools that we have with your providers, the different calculators and retirement income kind of metrics that they have on the back end, we're able to see how many of your participants are on track to reach their retirement income goals. So that's really another way too, where we can measure the success of a plan. So these kinds of things might help you determine how well the plan is working for your participants. It's not on here, but I would say another example is, are we having a lot of questions surrounding a certain topic, or are we not seeing utilization of a certain feature? Could be we added the Roth feature and no one's really using that, or distributions. Maybe we're seeing a lot of loan requests and hardship withdrawal kind of requests. So you can kind of, for every plan, lift the hood and look at the data and kind of see what's going on. A lot of plan sponsors do offer participant education and advice programs. Again, not all advisors can provide fiduciary advice. Fiduciary advice is an individualized recommendation to the participant regarding investments available under the plan. If you are in human resources or you're a CFO and a participant comes to you and says, can you give me advice on how I should invest my 401k money? Direct them to us. You do not want to get involved with that. So certainly lean on us as the fiduciaries here, as the experts here. And education is fine. In fact, if you call the 1-800 number at your provider, they can certainly give information and advice around facts about the plan or the investments or the different offerings that they have. So make sure you can make that distinction between what's advice and what's just information, education. And then there's targeted communications and education too. So this could be something like, we see there's a subset of people that aren't taking advantage of the full match, or we can even track, there's this subset of people that are fully in the fixed fund, and for their age, we'd really recommend that they have a more diversified approach with their investments. So we get creative here and find different ways to connect with people, communicate with them, make things easy for people to take action. So a lot of different styles. We've tried it a lot of different ways, and that's one of the things we're not afraid to do, is try new things and kind of tweak things and experiment with communication and different formats. So we certainly do a lot of in-person group meetings. We do a lot with one-on-one sessions, and then also the virtual style as well, whether it's group, one-on-one, pre-recorded even. And we have a financial wellness series that we created too, to give people an on-demand style of education. So people can go to our website or a YouTube channel, or say scan the QR on different materials, and it'll bring them to these on-demand videos that we created in-house. And this really came from conversations with people over the years. We realized that people need a lot of help, not only in the 401k area, but other financial topics surrounding that. So we want people to have a good handle on their overall finances, and not just talk about saving more in the 401k. So this is it's been really well received, that whole financial wellness series. Okay, so we're going to do a poll here really quick. Have you utilized our virtual or in-person one-on-one session with your participants? So just kind of curious and gauging the experience here. And I know some are current clients. You may be a plan sponsor client of ours already, maybe not yet, and just listening to this for some more information. Okay, so a majority of people are utilizing our one-on-one sessions with participants. I know it varies too by company on whether that even makes sense for your workforce or not. Some of our clients, it actually works best if they're spread out in many locations, maybe don't even have a main office. And then some still were, doing the style where it's better to come in person. I'll share the results there. Still better to come and do the in-person sessions. Some do group and one-on-one, or one or the other. So it really, I think the key word is just custom, because it really just depends. All right, thank you. All right, next section is plan administrator basics. So as a plan administrator, obviously you will have a lot of different roles and responsibilities, and wear some different hats with the 401k. Specifically here, we're talking about requirements under the IRS, audits, and from a legal documentation standpoint. So every plan has a plan document, and it's very important to follow what's written in the document. It should be formally adopted by the company, kept up to date. It does need to be amended. There's model amendments about every 5 to 6 years. And if you amend it in between, make changes to it in between, you need to obviously document that process. And then there's a summary of material modification for your staff. Plan documents are very lengthy. It's important that it's written in a way that actually follows your practice and day-to-day. Very important to follow that. So some aspects here, like we talked about eligibility, who may be covered on your plan, how much employees can contribute, how much the company may contribute when a participant becomes invested in those benefits, and then a whole section on distributions, when and how benefits will be paid to participants. Your plan may or may not be required to have an IRS audit every year. So depending on your size, you may need to have an external audit. If a IRS auditor finds errors, they could be serious. A lot of times there's just correction action that needs to take place. Your auditor usually gets access directly to your provider, so you don't need to necessarily be the middleman. They can go directly to your provider and get the data that they need, and just will come back to you with questions or areas they want to dive deeper on. Always let us know too if you need assistance with audits, whether it's gathering documentation, gathering minutes of the meetings, doing any digging on data, things like that. Now, this last section here on just kind of overall fiduciary liability, DOL audits, insurance, and bonding. So there has increasingly been more pressure on plans in general. I would say more in the larger plan space, but kind of coming down to small and mid-sized plans as well. But just litigation based on fees, selection of investments, performance, and here it's if you remember one thing from this section, it's just very important to have a process in place and document that process. It is good that you're here because you want to learn more about your fiduciary responsibilities, and this is something that we take very seriously. We want you to take it very seriously because we can be held personally liable on just fiduciary related topics. And so we want to protect ourselves as much as possible. There are a whole host of different lawsuits and litigation that's out there in the 401k plan world. This is just one example where a group of employees at Northwestern University basically claimed that the 403b plan fiduciaries violated the duty of prudence by failing to monitor and control the record-keeping fees, offered mutual funds and annuities in the form of more expensive retail share classes, and then offered complex investment options, so caused confusion among the plan participants. And this was a big one that went all the way to the Supreme Court. They did favor the employees in two of these three kind of sections of this lawsuit. And when we first heard about this back in 2022, we actually, as a group of advisors here, we thought, okay, we're glad that we have a really sound process in place to protect from some of these things. Like, we do look at the share classes of the funds, and we are always, monitoring and negotiating lower plan fees and documenting that process and not having complex investment options. So we were glad it kind of reiterated some of the things that we're already doing in practice, but it reminds us that that's very, very important, not only that from the perspective of the performance of the funds, but also really the cost. There's to protect yourself best, like when it comes to a situation like this, conducting periodic due diligence. So having those investment committee meetings, we do send electronic due diligence as well, hiring experts to benchmark your plan fees, going to your providers and trying to negotiate the worst they can say is no. And then again, having that documentation of those conversations in the minutes is really important. So practicing a prudent fiduciary process is really your most important line of defense. I know I've said this, but document. You don't necessarily have to have the best performing funds at all points in time, but documenting your decisions at that point in time with the best information that you had, and being able to show that you did the due diligence on it at that time. So in selecting, evaluating, and retaining service providers, some factors that are important here is knowing how your service provider is compensated. So digging into that fee disclosure. So that's something that we help committees do when we're meeting together. Periodically monitoring those fees, comparing to benchmarks, and not only just looking at costs, but also considering their service and the different tools and resources and things that you're taking advantage of that they offer. Monitoring all investments in the 401k, comparing different features, risks, and costs of different types of investment vehicles. make sure that participants aren't driving costs through excessive trading. I would say we don't usually see much of that in our world, but if you're changing investments, making sure you're documenting the reasons for that change, so the basis of that decision, and offering a mix of diverse investment options. And I would say most plans are doing that. All the plans that we work on are doing that. So we've got that covered. You could find yourself in a situation where there's a DOL audit, not as common as an IRS audit. Always let us know if this happens so we can help gather documentation and everything like that. But things that they're mainly looking for: timely and accurate deposits of the contributions in the plan. That's really big. That's number one. Ensuring notices, statements are going out timely. Do you have the plan fidelity bond, accurate and timely filing of the 5500s, things like that. So there's two things that I think kind of get intermingled here. There's ERISA fidelity bonds and then ERISA fiduciary insurance. Fidelity bonds, number one, that's something that every plan has to have. So if you fill out your annual questionnaire when you're doing the compliance testing, getting the census information, there's always a questionnaire that says, hey, do you have a fidelity bond? And does it cover 10% of plan assets at the beginning of the calendar year up to 500,000. And I'd say most plans utilize just their general insurer to hold this fidelity bond. They don't have to, but I think that's a really good place to start. And then ERISA fiduciary insurance is different. That's not required, it's advisable. And this is for individuals to protect themselves if they were to be charged with the responsibility of creating, managing, and administrating employee benefit plans. So just wanted to make sure there was a distinction there. All right, so like I mentioned, you'll receive a fiduciary guide and a checklist from us. There is a 2024 compliance deadline section. So that's helpful, I think, for you to see kind of in the calendar year, different requirements, different deadlines that are important from a compliance standpoint. Okay, one more poll and then we'll wrap it up with questions. I'm just seeing if there's anything else, other topics that you may want to learn more about. We always are trying to come up with new ideas and make sure we're delivering on what people are wanting to know. We do every year have a Medicare and Social Security webinar. Those are very popular. I do have recordings too of those from 2024. Okay. So kind of a little bit of everything looks like. This is helpful for us as well, like I said, when we're creating new content or even just kind of reiterating some of the past content that we've always put out. Okay. There is this optional credential that you can take part in. It's called Fiduciary Essentials for Defined Contribution Plans. Really, this is for you to just further your understanding of being a plan fiduciary and be able to apply these concepts to your decision-making process. So there's a few quizzes, and then there's a final test. You will also get things like an audit checklist, course transcript, another compliance calendar with important dates. So after you exit out of this webinar, there will be a question that asks you if you would like to take part in that optional credential. We pay for it. I will send you the information and the code that you would use. So like I mentioned at the beginning, there's more content on our website and our YouTube channel. Please drop any questions that you have for me in the chat. I'll be sure to look those over. We have some upcoming webinars I wanted to mention. Next week, we're taking a deeper dive basically on 529 college savings plans. In October, we're talking about what women want in retirement, so a women in investing. And then in November, we're having a post-election market consideration presentation from New York Life Investments. And then there's recordings as well from past webinars, of course. So some of the more popular ones, every January we do kind of a new year retirement plan considerations and market update. And as I mentioned, we have previous recordings on this fiduciary training topic as well. Medicare, raising financially aware kids, Social Security, some other pretty popular ones. And then here was our 2023. So we've been doing this webinar series now for several years. And so we've really kind of built out this library, and the past recordings can be found on our website and our YouTube channel. So we did have a question come in for the Fidelity bond that I talked about. Basically asking, is that 10% up to 500,000 in plan assets or a total of 500,000? So a total of 500,000 in coverage, basically. So you don't need more than that as far as the bond coverage for any plan size. That's where you'd max out. Yep. All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much again for joining this morning. Here's my contact information if you have questions or comments, and hope to see you next week on our Advanced College Saving Concepts webinar. And I always tell people, if you can't join these live, still register for them, because then you will get the recording automatically afterwards. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, and we'll chat soon. Bye-bye.